This is Counterpoint. I'm Tanya Granick-Allen. There are many important legal challenges being fought in this country, whether this litigation has to do with COVID, charter rights, or fundamental freedoms. Court challenges are a great way to test the laws of our nation. Today, we will discuss several interesting cases, including how the Parliamentary Protective Service is prohibiting a pro-life organization from displaying some of their signs. We're going to talk about an Ontario school trustee's quest to attend his own board meetings. We'll talk about a court case that will set precedent about the definition of hatred, and two churches' challenge and appeals to the Supreme Court of Canada relating to Ontario's COVID lockdown. Lots to discuss, and join me now to walk us through this litigation is Hatim Kheir, a staff lawyer with Charter Advocates Canada, which is funded by the Justice Centre for Constitutional Freedoms. Welcome, Hatim. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Hi, Tanya. Glad to be here.
Okay, so there's lots to discuss. I in particularly love when there is litigation challenging our charter rights, because I really feel like this is an excellent exercise in democracy and also our freedoms. So let's talk about one of the first ones. So tell me about the Parliamentary Protective Service, which is prohibiting a pro-life organization. Start me off by, what is the Parliamentary Protective Service?
They're a relatively new organization, and they're tasked with this physical security of Parliament Hill and the Parliament building. They're not a police force in the normal sense. So if they were to arrest someone, they would hand that person off to the Ottawa Police Force. But one of their roles is in managing Parliament Hill and dealing with the various groups that are seeking to demonstrate on Parliament Hill or have some sort of an event there.
Okay, so why is a pro-life organization being targeted, or their signage rather?
Well, so our client, Campaign Life Coalition, organizes the National March for Life every year. And so this year, the day before the march was scheduled, they had a press conference. It was going to take place on the Hill, and the press was invited to attend. And part of Campaign Life's plan for the press conference was that they had signs depicting the victims of abortion, and the signs were face down on the lawn of Parliament Hill, and they were going to be lifted up in the middle of the press conference at a predetermined point during one of the speaker's comments.
Okay.
Now, while they were setting up for the press conference, they were dealing with the PPS just to make sure that everything was in compliance in terms of the size of their stage and other sort of mundane matters like that. But in the course of that, one of the officers from the PPS asked to see the signs, which were face down on the grass. They complied. They showed it to him. And after he saw that, he called his superior and came back saying that the signs were too graphic and that they weren't allowed to show them on the Hill. So Campaign Life complied. They swapped out the signs with signs that just had words on them. They proceeded with the press conference, but they were prevented from showing those signs. And then after the fact, the officer sent an email to their contact at Campaign Life, thanking them for their compliance, but then also attaching a copy from a policy with rules on the use of the Hill, which had rules for the content of signs. It prohibited signs which promote hatred and contain obscenity. Those are crimes. They're established as being constitutional. Those weren't at issue in this case. But then the policy he provided also included a prohibition on signs which are offensive. Which is a much broader term and which isn't defined.
I was going to say, offensive is such a subjective term. It depends, I guess, on who is claiming to be offended and who gets to be the adjudicator of what is offensive, because everybody can get offended. I sometimes am offended on a daily basis by my own children, for example. But anyhow, this is actually quite serious. So from where does the PPS get their authority? And is this the force that kind of came to be after there was that terrible attack on Parliament Hill a number of years ago?
I believe so. The force is only a few years old. They get their authority from the Parliament of Canada Act, and they're not granted any additional police powers. They have all the powers of a natural person. And they're tasked specifically with the role of maintaining physical security on the Hill.
Okay, so with respect to these signs, and I know these signs are graphics, they show aborted babies, basically, like the fetal remains of an aborted infant. This is what I assume that is being contested here.
Yeah, exactly. And there's one more element to this. So the term offensive is very broad, as you pointed out, and the Supreme Court has repeatedly said that offensive matters are people are free to say them. Essentially, the right to freedom of expression protects the right to offend people.
Okay, I'm
and
going to
people don't have a right
pause you
not
there.
to be
We're going to
offended.
pick this up just after this commercial break.
Sure.